What's up? I'm Kyle.
I'm Brendan.
And welcome to the Brain Buffet. For now, I got a picture of the map.
All right.
But this is the Antarctica on the outside, right? So I'm not trying to say anything with this. I'm just simply asking questions. So if you look at this. Okay. United States is right here, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So there's no cities on this one, but we can relatively, Michigan.
You can kind of pinpoint.
Yeah.
Michigan's a glove, and
yeah, Michigan's right there, and Ohio's got to be right here, then, right? So we'll just say Columbus is meh.
Yeah, sure, somewhere in that area.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. So when we went to Hawaii, we took a flight from to go there. We went from Columbus to Chicago, from Chicago to Honolulu, from Honolulu to Lihue. I showed you the picture on the map of the airplane, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, how it flew across the states, almost up into Canada, nearly.
Literally. And so if you go from here to, let's say, Chicago, and let's say you got Hawaii over here, so Honolulu would be somewhere in the ballpark there. If you literally, and again, you might have to excuse part of my directioning. But, I went a little bit too far. Do I got a ruler?
Need something straight?
This will work.
Anything with a straight edge.
You could literally draw a straight line.
Yeah.
And you're crossing right up there at the border.
Right.
And again, I'm not making any conclusions here. I just experienced something that's raised some questions for me. But this is a picture of the flat Earth.
Right.
So what does that mean? I don't know. I just know if I was traveling and I was expending fuel, money on fuel, I would go from point A to point B the quickest way possible.
Yeah.
And
of
so
course, a straight route.
What really raised a question for me is that, and we'll show a picture on the screen we got to at this point. Our flight on the monitor on the airplane went over Washington, Oregon area, and then it just went south.
Yeah.
And I brought it up to some people, and some of the excuses, some of the answers were so great. They're like, well, you just got to catch the wind stream, and then when you catch the wind stream, you can just ride it down. And I'm not saying that I know weather or anything like that, but it seems a little crazy to me that you're going to take a physical plane that's flying as fast as it is and jump into some sort of wind stream as if you're finding Nemo in the turtle. You're riding
Well, the concept is there with the whole wind stream and using a wind stream to use that to use less fuel and be able to travel faster. Because if you're traveling against a wind or whatever it may be, you're going to have to work a lot harder.
I'm just going to show this real quick, dude. Look at that. A to B.
Just for just to show them kind of how it looked on your thing, because on the way you showed me is you basically hit the Seattle point,
basically,
and then you went. Shoom.
Literally took
you almost followed that line.
If it were a clock with that at midnight at 12, we probably went 7 p.m., 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was a huge, and on the plane, I'm not saying I'd feel it, but it was you came at a Y, you just kind of
right. Yeah.
I'm not saying, obviously they can shift, but it was just so strange. And I was like, that's just...
It'd be interesting to see it from an actual globe perspective, though. If we had a proper Earth globe sitting here, being able to draw the line and such, because it is wild. Because what you showed me,
it just didn't seem efficient at all.
You went up and around and then hard down. It was.
Part of that is for effect to show the lift off and where your height and altitude is, but
sure,
that's part of the curve. But I was more so looking at
the line,
yeah, you know what I mean, where we crossed, where we went over into the ocean at.
Yeah, for sure. The flat idea of it kind of makes it iffy, but
for sure, it's hard.
I don't know. I think even the concept of a flat Earth is, I don't believe the Earth's flat. doesn't necessarily make sense for the Earth to be flat, I don't believe.
Well, what if it was not so much flat like this piece of paper, but flat in the sense of like there's at least no curvature. I mean, no like real curvature. There might be some sort of I don't know what's underneath it. You know what I mean? Because that's what that's what's hard to conceptualize. I mean, as if the Earth being flat isn't hard enough to conceptualize. But like, what's underneath is just like a saucer. You know what I mean? Like, is it rotating? But another thing that's crazy that made me question is rainbows. The rainbows are curved.
Yeah, right.
Why are they curved?
It's the way that the light is entering our atmosphere. It's hitting our atmosphere, and it will deflect the light around because, I mean, if the Earth is round, our atmosphere is round. It will...
Or is it bordering something?
I mean, it could be.
All right.
Yeah.
I have no clue. I was just thinking, like, whoa, what's going on here with this? What's going on with that?
What's also wild, though, is like the way that Antarctica does go around, like, doesn't go around everything. Like, the way it's depicted here isn't exactly accurate.
Sure.
It doesn't exactly go all the way around the map in, like, a circle around it. But, like, if you look at a globe, the way it I don't know. It's just odd.
It is, isn't it? And it's, again, I don't know if it's like a complete pizza saucer. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like a full-blown, like, cookie cutter kind of thing. I mean... I don't know. What if it is like a Simpsons dome idea, you know?
Right. They literally just have a dome over top the entire Earth that just circles Antarctica. And the reason we can't go to Antarctica is because that's where, like, the dome ends.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. And then I'm not saying that there's not a space, though, you know? Because then the next thing is like, well, what is it? Are we just... I mean, we could be in a simulation, but...
I feel like a simulation is more realistic than a flat Earth.
Well, the flat Earth is just the platform, just where it is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. And
but
it might be easier to do that in a simulation than it would be to have like a spinning ball.
Say we're not in a simulation, though,
or sphere, I should say.
Yeah, if we're not in a simulation, though, I mean, then it makes more sense as far as we know with physics for it to be a sphere because all the gravity's pulling towards a center. So it would make more sense for things to form around it on every side equally.
Gravity's still a theory, though. It's never really been proven.
To an extent. I mean, we know everything pulls down.
Sure.
We know there's a speed that things fall down. So
what if it's magnetism in a way?
Even if it is magnetism, then it's still going to be pulling to a central point on each side individually and creating a ball around it. Because it would be equal on every single side. So if you have like something in the center, everything is going to want to pull to it on this side, this side, this side, this side.
But why does it have to have a center point of pull? You know, why couldn't it just be like an equal pull around? I mean, maybe what if the center for the gravitational... I'm going to slide this over here for a second. Just like at least maybe like right in the middle of the you know, whatever, versus like, you know,
sure.
So, but then again, though, what if the whole the spherical idea of it is more so just our visual conceptualization of what it is, you know, because it's hard for us to kind of picture.
It's also just what we've been told our entire lives to understand and to know.
And it boils down to that.
Yeah, it really is. And then people start challenging it with the flat Earth theories, but like, I feel like the way that the flat Earth theories were provided were in pretty poor ways.
Yeah, they definitely didn't do it justice.
Yeah, they tried to like say the whole thing with like there's no curvature to the Earth and such, but like if you look out on the horizon, if you look far enough out, you can clearly see a curvature to it.
I don't know, man. We were pretty high up in the air on the way to Hawaii, and I didn't see no curve.
I could see a curve when I was down in Mexico. I could clearly see that there was a slight curve to it.
Maybe, man. Maybe. It's I mean, it goes back to indoctrination for me, and the fact that like there is such a a strong spearheaded passion against disproving it, you know?
Right.
Like you would almost I'm the idea of let the fire burn. I mean, this is a nonviolent situation, but let the fire burn itself out. Meaning like if it's truly untrue, let them exhaust themselves. And then, you know, those people realize, okay, you know,
Right.
But when there's such a heavy campaign against it, it kind of just makes me think of like, well, why?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that everything should be open to discussion and should be proved properly or disproved properly, rather. They shouldn't just throw it out like it's not existent. But I mean, if you start at a central point on a map and you continue going, eventually you're going to come back to that spot.
Well, that was going to be one of the things that I was going to ask. I don't think you can. So, like, for instance, I think you can go around this way, which, again, if you're on a sphere, you would be going around the world.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
But to go from North Point down to come back around to go over there, I mean, again, I don't know. But from what they're saying, that wouldn't be possible. And I don't know if we have any history of anybody doing it as far as going over the South Pole. Because that's the big idea.
It doesn't
here.
necessarily have to be over the South Pole. It could even be going east to west or whatever.
But still, you'd be going over the South Pole. Do you see what I mean? So if you're on a globe, right? I'm not debating this way.
Right.
But no matter where you're at, this way, I don't think it's ever been done.
I'm not sure. Flying over Antarctica is
a no-no to begin with, which is interesting in its own self.
You can't fly over Antarctica. So, yeah,
it's weird.
So, based off that concept, you're thinking of it more as like almost like a toilet paper roll.
No, I kind of really think, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, if you're thinking that you can go around east to west, you're still assuming a cylinder shape. But if you can't go north to south, I guess that wouldn't really be a cylinder. It'd almost be like a flat piece of paper where if you're going east to west, you're going this way. Then to get back over to here, you got to flip it over and you're coming that way.
Right. And I don't know if I don't know what this side is.
Right.
What if it's just a bunch of jagged spikes
but I know
and stalagmites?
There has been people that have flown all the way around the entire world, as far as we know, anyways.
Sure. And I still think you could do that in this idea. You would just have to have it at a degree where you're angling. You just fly around.
It would be such a minuscule angle to have to turn.
I'm not saying
when you're talking about like thousands of miles,
the vastness of it.
Even if you just like, you don't even really got to turn. Even if like the wind just hits you the right way
over time.
Yeah.
So again, I don't know.
Not impossible, I suppose. It's just the
fact that we went over Oregon is odd.
Yeah. From my understanding,
and if there's any pilots out there that can explain this to me, please prove to me that I'm a dummy. I'm not saying I know all the facts, but it struck me as strange.
Yeah. From my understanding, though, Hawaii was always over the southwest.
Exactly, because on a globe, the curvature of the Earth would do that. So, for instance, if you curved this, if you like balled this, it would drop down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So you would have this idea of like going over almost Mexico.
Yeah, but so why in a plane flight wouldn't you just go, even if it's southwest, say you're right here, why not just go shoot?
Exactly. Well, first of all, it's not there on this map, but yes, I see what you're saying. And that's what I expected. I expected to fly over like Texas.
Yeah. When I flew to Mexico, that's a lot shorter of a flight. It literally took 2.5 to 3 hours, I believe, to actually fly there. But I want to say it was a pretty straight line. And I was in Cancun. So, but what's wild is Cancun is actually in the exact same time zone as us.
Yeah.
You don't lose any time. But if you look, so here we are basically. We're Eastern time. Cancun's
Well, I think
down this
south.
Yeah, down this area.
I think so.
But so like this point right here is like Illinois. Illinois is not in the same time as us.
They're just slightly over, yeah.
And that's an hour. So man, that's wild. So you can almost, I'm not exactly sure how to break down like time.
We'd have to be 100% on where Cancun is.
Yeah. I want to say it's like down on this tip almost.
If it's right there, then that would make sense.
But that would make more sense. That would make more sense in a global perspective.
But what's weird is that what is that anyways? The whole time change. You know what I mean? Like that
essentially just the sun. It's all based off the sun and the moon.
Because Hawaii, I think, if I understood correctly, they don't do daylight savings time or anything like that.
Daylight savings time is only a thing to try and adjust people to the changing of the sun coming up and down earlier to give like farmers more time, essentially. But it's not really changing anything.
I never actually knew that.
Yeah, all you have to actually do is just wake up an hour earlier instead of changing the time.
The time zones I can't necessarily shed too much light on. I don't know about that.
No, the time zones they're not theory. I mean, not really, because it is just
time is a weird theory.
Time is weird. Time is irrelevant because it doesn't truly exist.
No.
All you can base time off of is the sun rising and the sun going down.
And the moments you experience. And the organization tool in your head keeps them present, past, and future. But there is only, not to get all zen, but there's only now.
Yeah. Time is irrelevant. If you really want to boil it down, the only reason that we use time is for scheduling.
Because the system that we're in requires it.
Yeah, exactly. You got to wake up for work. You got to go to work. You got to...
You get off at a certain time.
Yeah, whatever it may be.
If you're lucky.
yeah, whatever it may be. So, I mean, but if you boil that down, what is time? Time is just something we've agreed upon.
Exactly. It's whatever you make it to be. But you don't want to be that one person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We collectively agree.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Which, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. I think it's good to have that because there has to be some sort of synchronicity in between others.
Sure. But maybe the one and kind of comes down to feelings and how it kind of makes it another person, and you know what I mean? Does it add stress? That's kind of what I'm getting to.
Oh, time? Absolutely.
Right. So if there was a way to rework the idea to where it's not so, I don't know, just the concept of you're late for such and such has such a, and sure, you should be prompt, but I don't know. It's a way to, it's just kind of a tool. You know, it really boils down just to the organizational tool.
Yeah, that's all it is. It's just as useful as the calendar is also based off of time. So like, I don't know. It just is something like that though. Like, but what's wild though is like, you think about random animals, like deer, for instance, they know when it's about to be cold, but that's based on like, they know they can sense climate changes and things of that nature. And they use that to eat in abundance to go hibernate for the winter or whatever it may be. Or, I mean, at this point, they probably know when hunting season is.
It actually depends on the generation of the deer, for real. If you get younger, you know what I mean? If they haven't been exposed to that, then, you know, they're kind of, you know, missing out on some of that. But it is strange how, I mean, even with like birds of migration, you know what I mean? How there's an instinctual knowing,
which we've lost because of time.
That maybe our phones, computers, TVs, everything. You know what I mean? Just like we've lost so the distracted from being able to focus on something.
Yeah, like we've lost the ability to use our instincts because like we have a screen here that can just tell us whatever we want. We can tell us when the seasons are changing. We can tell when it's going to be summer, when it's going to be fall. And we've lost like, oh, there's a clear climate change coming in.
Just put your nose up in there and just kind of give it a couple sniffs and then just be like, oh, pressure's changing. We're going to get some storms.
Yeah. I wonder when the idea of time was even like thought up, because I mean, if you look back to like
A lot of it, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a lot of that boils down to me. Like my just down the rabbit hole idea of like, who was the first person to say this is what it is?
Right.
You know?
And I think a lot of it boils down to like sundials and such. If you look back into like the Mayans and the Aztecs, they used sundials a lot to tell when the sun was going to be going down. That's how they did it. They would set it up so it would cast a shadow in a certain direction, and that's how they told the time.
I would imagine, with that being said, probably astrology. You know,
yeah,
probably astrology started it, and the mapping of that, and you can just, I don't know how you'd piece that information together first time finding it out, but or you know, maybe not the first time, just rediscovering it. Right. However you want to look at human history.
I mean, as far as we understand, there's not really a first time of discovering something. It's to our knowledge.
I was going to ask, do you think it's linear? Do you mean like...
Is time linear?
Well, no. I mean in the sense of like... I hate to use the word evolution, but like civilization. Do you think we've lost civilization?
Oh, absolutely.
More...
So, I was watching this thing that was talking about ancient civilizations and stuff like that, and there was the Ice Age from 30,000 BC or something like that. And they decided like, oh, we should probably just stop digging or whatever. Like, there's not going to be anything beyond this point. And then like some other scientist was like, no, let's keep looking. Let's dig deeper into this. And they ended up finding people like 45,000 to 60,000 BC. And they were able to find things out about these people that were also like, they had technologies and understanding of things, not necessarily cell phones or like internet or things like that, like we have, but like technologies that we thought hadn't already existed, but they did. We just had to dig deeper within the ice.
Like electromagnetism, levitation, something like that.
Crazy.
Dude, one of the theories I came across of when I was kind of going down this whole thought process is that Antarctica is actually Atlantis. It just got frozen over from the Ice Age. Because I can't remember what it was, but there was a website that you can go to, and it mapped earthquake seismographs. Mm-hmm. And if you go to Antarctica, though it doesn't depict it as this, it depicts it as we see it on a globe. You can see certain aspects of it where it's like 90-degree angles.
Right.
And you know what I mean? Like a bunch of 90-degree angles and like some like almost port-looking straight divots.
Yeah.
You know? And it, like what? What is that? You know?
I wonder why there's such a ban against Antarctica.
Probably because there's stuff like that they don't want us to know. Because that kind of shatters everything in the history books. If they're what, and I'm not going to try to say that like, I mean, Hitler did go down to Antarctica when everything was kind of going on there. But if there was some sort of civilization underneath the ice, that would just kind of shatter human history in the sense of our understanding.
Yeah, absolutely.
And at that point, it would kind of unravel everything. It would just kind of be like they would say like dominoes, you know what I mean? The first one to fall, but that would be a big domino.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So I think that's the reason why. I mean, it comes down to secrecy. If you ask me.
Even if Hitler did go to Antarctica and then he came back, whatever, and shot himself.
Well, one of the interesting things about that is there is a colony, a city, a town in Argentina that speaks fluent German.
Yeah.
And there's nobody around them that speaks German.
Right.
So there was this idea that I think it was a TV show actually that it was like called Finding Hitler, but they went there and they apparently found ancestors of Hitler themselves, like great grandparents. So who's to say he didn't die of old age?
Yeah. I mean, it's just, again, it's what we've been taught and what we understand.
Right. Well, that's what we're here to do. We're here to provide food for thought because what if, you know? I mean, sure, we can always just resort back to what we've always been taught, but who knows? I don't know. It could be all nonsense too. There's that word that I can't stand, but seems to be quite prevalent. Coincidence.
Yeah, it's extremely common in our generation.
For sure.
Everything's based on a coincidence. What's wild to me, though, is like, what is all of this? Everything in between the land masses.
The water?
It's water, but like...
Why so much? Because there's a lot.
There's a lot of water. I understand, like, we don't necessarily have...
What if
we don't have control over how much is land and what's water, but like, so much of that is undiscovered. It's insane.
Yeah. No, we know more about, well, from what we're told, we know more about space than what we do under the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's insane. We know, I think, like 3%.
I think the explanation, at least for me, and not saying this is true, but this is at least what I have in my head. When the Ice Age, as we started kind of warming up a bit after the Ice Age, I mean, think of all that. I mean, we've seen some glaciers and stuff, from being in the, eastern area that we are in. But I mean, to put that on scale, the sizes of however many, you know what I mean, all over the place. Right. So as that started changing, I mean, that could be at least an explanation for some percentage of because you're right. When you really, even if it's a globe, regardless of what the map is that you're, working with, the amount of water it's
unbelievable and
mind-boggling.
It's wild how much is just unexplored. And even to go beyond that is like, we can go back to kind of what we talked about in our last podcast with talking about actually colonizing Mars. Why don't we try to live under the water? I mean, it would...
Dude, that'd be awesome. I think there are some hotels that have like underwater.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would kind of be a dome life type thing, but a lot easier to access the normal world.
Well, let's be honest, at least in our understanding, until we can find another place like this, any place that you go, you're going to have to create your own terrarium to survive. You know?
So why not make it on Earth?
We got to get over the dome idea if it doesn't already exist.
Yeah, I know, but why not make it on Earth?
Think about that, though. The fact that you're even saying that any other exploration idea, we have to have a dome, what does that say about the potential idea that we already are in one?
Right.
Because any other situation, you have to have one.
I've never been allowed to travel that high. So.
Me neither.
So, I mean, I've been in a plane, but that only goes up a mile or whatever it may be in there. So
I think we went up to like 40 to 42,000 feet in the air.
42,000?
Yeah,
I didn't think it was that much.
That was on the way back. When we came back, we actually hit some serious turbulence coming into San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Which again, we went from here to San Francisco.
San Francisco is way south of that.
Washington to Columbus.
Which, I mean, that's a little straighter though. If you're figuring on a globe idea, where you're southwest off of the shore, then there and then there, it's a little bit kind of straighter.
Depending on where we're at, but yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I should have done is taken a picture of where we cross over on the way back. I didn't. It was super early and we had some crazy turbulence and I was just trying to like relax, zone out, go to my happy place.
Yeah, no, for sure. I don't know
it was like a 2 a.m. flight.
Yeah. I just don't understand why we can't try to like search more of this and
let's get a boat.
Yeah.
I have been hearing some reports that I have heard is one of the cool things about it is underwater, there's not a lot of oxidization, obviously, because it's underwater.
Right.
And because of that, structures or lost things are usually preserved very well.
Yeah.
And they last a long time because of the coldness. And
I can't necessarily remember what shore it was off of. I'm not exactly sure where it was, but there was like there's been so many underwater cities that have been found. They're not, at the time, they probably weren't necessarily underwater. But, I mean, after the ice age and it started melting, it started to flood. But, like, there's so much. Like, I don't know, it's just insane.
No,
there's already cities. Like,
the vastness of it is truly, I mean, again, it's hard to conceive. And when we were in Hawaii, what was super weird is, like, there was a strange isolation feeling because, like, at least for me, when I went, 30,000 feet perspective, just when I was there on the island, you're surrounded by water, just lots and lots and lots and lots of water. You know, like it's a solid flight to go anywhere.
Yeah.
You know, and
even to travel to other islands you have to fly to.
Yeah.
Most of the other islands, I think a couple are connected, but for the most part.
So that was a strange feeling I did get there, is a weird sense of isolation. I mean, it was kind of nice in its own like remote getaway kind of feel.
For an experience, for a period of time.
I just didn't anticipate going there or anticipate that going there. You know what I mean? That I did that feeling.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're literally trapped on a body of land.
I mean, you still are here, but
look at how much further you can go. I mean, really, if you want to look at it, you can nearly go to Russia from America. Like,
no, for sure. Yeah, it was weird. But I've been to the Bahamas too, and I didn't really get that feeling there. I think it was just because,
the Bahamas are in the middle of this. It's not even that far for.
Yeah, you could, you know, I mean, there's people that swam across there.
Yeah, that's crazy. I don't know. The whole Earth is, I mean, it's just wild.
It is. I just wanted to bring that up to you, though. We don't got a flat Earth it the whole time. It's just, and not even that I believe in flat Earth. Wild. It was just strange, you know?
The Earth is absolutely in no regards two-dimensional.
No, like, it can't be because we're you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, to our understanding, when we're three-dimensional, we could be standing on a two-dimensional plane, but like.
But if you,
the Earth would have to still be insanely thick. There would still have to be the layers to it and everything. Maybe there's the reason we can't dig so far is because you'll hit a hole
and go through.
Yeah. Be wild.
Or you just hit a big giant steel wall and it just won't let you go through anymore.
Yeah. That's what happens. That's why all the big bits break or whatever when they're digging.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of life or lack of, unfortunately, underground as well, in the sense of tunnels. You know, like that's one thing that like I think has started to become a reality for some people with the whole Boring Company with Tesla.
Yeah.
But that's not new.
No.
Like there's been that for a long time. And probably even to a degree or scale that, you know, I don't know for certain, but and that's what's crazy too though, because if this is correct, and again, I don't know, but you could, it makes it everything so much more
accessible.
Yeah. I was almost going to use a very, like playgroundish, you know what I mean? Like you can do so much, it's more malleable. And so you could, I mean, I think over in East Asia or something like that, they have maglev trains where like they travel like super fast because of just magnetic levitation that just propels. Could do that underground. That'd be so easy.
And you can go from here,
boom,
to here
in an hour.
Yeah. Why though? So in theory, why not through the ocean?
I'm sure there are. And that's one of the crazy things too, though, is when I was watching that video, that documentary about Antarctica and how it had all those jagged and 90-degree angles. Mm-hmm. There were some areas that literally had like, I mean, it looked like a tunnel for miles.
Right.
Like miles, you know. And
which, I mean.
But what was crazy is there was multiple of them and they were parallel.
Yeah. So it's almost like something dug.
Nature doesn't do that. You know what I mean?
And even an animal doesn't necessarily do that.
No, not in the scale, you know, because it wasn't just one either.
Yeah.
It was crazy. So maybe, you know?
Yeah.
That would only make sense.
Make some massive tunnels that just go through the ocean. Imagine what that would do for like trade and things of that nature.
So easy. You know?
Yeah, for sure. You wouldn't have to rely on.
But you know what that does for me then? Is I took a marine biology class in high school, and of course, you know, you have some of the deepest trenches. How I can't conceptualize the depthiness of the trenches if this is correct, because how much is left underneath it then? You know, and I'm not saying because they were talking like
I can't remember, like the Marianas Trench is the deepest, I believe, or maybe they found one deeper. But like,
Please correct me if I'm wrong, but I know it's at least, I think it's at least like 10, 13,000 feet deep, like kilometers deep.
That sounds right. I mean,
it's almost, I think, like Mount Everest upside down almost.
Yeah. No, I think it's taller.
I think you're right.
I think it's deeper than Mount Everest is tall, is what I believe.
What we're boiling it down to is it's deep. But how does that make sense? You know, so I don't know. I've never been down to the depths of the ocean either.
I mean, even in a globe perspective, that's hard to imagine.
Sure.
You can't imagine that regardless. Like, even thinking that far into like space is kind of crazy. It's still a long way. Like,
and that's the other thing. And again, I'm not a pilot, so I have no clue, but flying on a globe just seems so impossible to me. With the way that it's spinning and the axis, and I know it's super computerized and not to discredit, because I know there's a lot of, first of all, just the balls to do it. You know what I mean? Like, you've got people's lives in your hands and you're in, you know, however high in the air. But if it's spinning so fast and your plane is moving one way and you're going, okay, so there's an argument to be made that if you were heading straight on to the rotation, right? Or maybe heading with it, but not everybody does that. That would have to mean that every single airport in the entire world is the same direction as the other one. Because if you're flying, you know, wherever, again, you know, maybe to Africa or over to Australia, you know, how is that so successful?
Right. Yeah,
you know?
No, for sure. I understand. I mean, even to think of the Earth spinning and hurtling through space.
Yeah. And then you got variables such as like giant peaks, such as the Mount Everest, you know?
Yeah.
And if it's spinning, I'm just talking about air manipulation, you know?
Right.
And then you get things like the depths of the ocean. How does that not throw off? I mean, I know liquid fills its form, you know, I'm not arguing that idea, but the fact that it all somehow works.
Yeah.
Like what? And it kind of creates a little beautiful tone with it, but to me, it just seems too faith-ish. You know, you just got to believe it. It's kind of boils it down to anything, I guess, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean,
in this regards, unless you're actually flying out to space and seeing this, or you're actually in I don't even know if you could do a submarine, maybe, probably, but going down to the depths of the ocean.
Well, to an extent, because a lot of submarines can't handle the pressure that they are dealt with.
Those little rover things that I see in the National Geographic.
Yeah, even those, though, those can't even make it too far because they just collapse under the pressure of the ocean. Because let's be real, think about how much water is above. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
Even like, I don't know, sometimes even getting a 5-gallon bucket dumped on you can kind of suck and be hard to breathe. Like,
no, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much pressure, it's practically impossible. So, I mean, if you want to just imagine what's at the bottom of Mariana's Trench.
I would say a whole lot of nothing. Because
or something that's learned to adapt to live in such a way, which, I mean, I don't want to think of what that would even look like.
I would imagine it would be smaller, though, because I couldn't think that well, I'm sure there's a lot of scraps that fall down to the bottom of the ocean, but I couldn't imagine the food supply. Then again, though, yeah, it's probably abundant in food supply. But as far as there's not a lot of energy down there's not a lot of sun. So, like, getting big.
Well, I mean, you can even
difficult. And even in the sense it's cold too, so it would slow down the
right. But I mean, you can look at like anglerfish. Anglerfish are like deep sea things that are, but they're not massive.
But those aren't like ocean floor. Those are still up a bit. I mean, they're down there, but they're not.
Yeah, I mean, probably the floor in certain areas. But even I
bet you'd get some shrimp, some crustaceans.
Yeah,
some. But I bet there'd be no color. Like, they're probably just transparent.
Yeah.
And
they can't see anything. They go completely based off of sound. And
actually, thinking of it, I have watched quite a few documentaries. But bioluminescence. A lot of them in the deep sea have bioluminescence, and they're usually like, well, not usually. There's probably much more than what I know of. But like kind of weird water centipede looking things. And they kind of like light up and stuff like that, depending on, you know, infrared or I could Could be wrong on that last one.
However,
yeah.
they just happen to light up
bioluminescence.
and they use it to like probably as a defense mechanism or to attract mates.
We actually, when I was a kid, I was probably like, I don't know, 11, 12 or something like that. We went to a cruise to some islands in Mexico, and we did this kind of like, it was like an iguana river canoe thing, but it was done at night.
Right.
And like pitch dark night, like 10, 11 o'clock night. And you go out to this giant lake, and there's quite a few of us. There was probably maybe, I don't know, 6 or 7 boats, and probably 5 people per boat or so. So there was a little bit of a crew with us. And then the guide just says, okay, well, if you want to, you can get out in the water as we get out to the lake.
Yeah.
And I was just kind of looking at the guy, and I'm like, what?
No.
Like it's dark. Like, you want me to go out in this Mexico, this lake?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what's going on here.
Yeah.
But I did. So we get out in the water, and when you splash, I think it's the oxidization of you moving the water. It actually creates the water to like glow like a highlighter.
Yeah,
and it's
cool.
The photoplankton, I think, or something like that. That has the bioluminescence that just makes it glow, and it was so crazy.
Yeah,
so like you're sitting there splashing around, and it was nuts.
It's insane how things adapt in such a way. Like, I mean, what do they use that for?
Yeah.
Why do they adapt in such a way?
Well, the way that it was kind of triggered from us moving the water, it almost seemed more of a reaction.
Yeah.
Versus like an adaptive advantage.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe.
Sure. I mean,
but it was still crazy.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, like in Mariana's Trench, we don't know what's in the majority of the water, but like, so there's the giant squid that's been spotted or whatever, but never been caught. Imagine if there's like just something bigger.
Dude, squid, I think squid might be some of the biggest creatures in the ocean, only because I feel like they're so smart. Like squid and octopus and stuff like that. Like, I would be more afraid of one of those than an octopus, right? Squids, I don't think are anything too crazy.
Both. Unless squids are bigger. They're also smart. Octopus are generally smaller, but they have...
Have you seen that big crazy thing by the oil rig underwater camera thing that like kind of like popped up, and it would look like an
eyeball?
It looked super crazy, but it had super long tentacles.
Yeah.
And I just feel like they're so much smarter. Like, I'd be more afraid of that than a shark.
Oh, 100%. I would rather even just how it would feel to get attacked by a squid, I would absolutely rather get attacked by a shark. Yeah. Because squids, on all their suction cups, they have like little claws on each one of them, and then they have a massive beak.
No, thank you.
Yeah.
No, thank you.
Not to mention just how weird it would feel probably being suction cupped by a squid.
Dude, as you were saying that, I got super uncomfortable because I just felt it like a super wet, slimy, just suction hug with knives.
Yeah, imagine like the hot cups that they do for back massages or whatever it may be, the therapies. Yeah. Just a lot of those, but very, very strong thing grabbing you in the water.
No, thank you.
But squids have like 3 brains or something like that to control each one of their suction cups individually. They can control them all individually. It's
I've seen them like get out of cages and like grab food. There's a food supply, and then get back in the cages.
Oh yeah, they're so smart.
It's like, what?
Like, they'll break out and go. I can't remember what aquarium it was, but there was an octopus that was breaking out. There was an octopus breaking out, going and eating some of the fish, and then getting back in his tank. They watched the security cameras, and like, this octopus would get out at night. He knew all the guards' routines and everything. Like,
wow,
he studied them.
That's ridiculous.
And to think that's water life. Yeah. That's crazy. We don't understand it at all. We are... No.
Well, and even to kind of... I mean, it doesn't have to do with intelligence so much, but I think it's like the butterfly shrimp or something like that, or maybe I'm just thinking of like Red Lobster Special or something. But... oh no, it's the mantis shrimp. It's the mantis shrimp. I'm sorry. It's the mantis shrimp. But it's got the hardest punch. But one of the other things is it's got like, I think I saw something that's got like 3 or 4 extra rods or cones in its eyes. Mm-hmm. So the spectrum that it sees, it's insane. Like, it sees so many other colors and other things. And it kind of makes you think about what you're missing out on.
How limited are we?
Yeah. And to think that, again, an ocean life has whether that evolutionary advantage or have just had it or however that worked out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I just can't imagine like the things that these animals and sea life, whatever, are able to do that we aren't, or not even necessarily just do, see or hear or
another crazy thing. And you're right. Like just did the different, I'm going to use the word advantages, like the different evolution. I mean, again, is it evolution or not? But like, for instance, when we were in Hawaii, one of the things we were on a boat and going to do like a tour thing, and there were spinner dolphins that came up to the boat. But what they were doing is they were sleeping. But how they sleep is they shut off half of their brain. And so like half of it can sleep and then it switches and shuts off the other half of the brain.
That's incredible.
And let the other one. Yeah. So like sometimes they're like kind of swimming, but they're like really slow or they'll kind of like be on one side kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
But they all do it together.
Right.
But it's like, what? How are you like choosing what side you want to turn off for the moment?
Meanwhile, we don't even know how to access all of our brain at all times.
Yeah. And they're picking and choosing.
Yeah. Right. Like we are capable of using every sector of our brain, but not at once. We use, I think it's, 23 to 27% max at any given moment.
I think it's because of the stuff in the water.
It's called fluoride. But
is that one of those metals that you're not supposed to have in your body?
Yeah, probably.
Huh. I don't know. Not a doctor or a metaltician.
Yeah, I mean, just crazy. It's incredible. That we've been alive for so long, but I wonder if to an extent though, if it's our way of conserving energy. If we're only using a portion of our brain, say if
why are a lot of us still so tired? That's a big issue
even
with
animals rest and everything. Everyone, it's required. I mean,
sure. But what I mean more so is that at least a common maybe just people are getting lazy, but there's a common theme of like just a pure exhaustion, which is strange. And maybe we're just getting older. But
that, and I mean, I don't think that necessarily has to do with limiting our brain power, because we can't comprehend even using 100% of our brain at any given moment. What if using 100% of our brain for 10 minutes completely exhausted us of all energy and we just like collapse? Yeah.
Everybody goes.
Whereas if we do it in the way we do, where we're limiting ourselves to using what we need, it allows us to function for the 16 hours that we are generally.
It's a good thought. It's a good thought.
It's wild.
Huh.
To go back into the octopus though, like the octopus shares almost the exact same. It's not DNA, but underneath a microscope, if you put some human cells under there and some octopus cells, they match.
So they're like mermaids. Is that a real mermaid? Just we have some sort of fantastical idea of like really what it is. Because let's be honest, if something, and I guess this is the theory that some sort of humanity split off from the rest and just went to the water. If that did happen, they're not going to keep the same skin and the same nose and the same ears and all that.
Well, I would say it's more likely that some sea life decide to come out of the water
and then go back in.
No, some stayed and some came out. I think it's more likely that.
So we just got rid of all of our tentacles. And
I think we got rid of things. Yeah, I think we got rid of our gills, maintained the lungs, and they learned how to transfer it to oxygen into what we need. I mean, just breath.
Strange.
I think we came out of the water rather than went in. Especially as vast as the ocean is.
I guess more so that idea. So I agree with you, but they went out and then they went back in.
Some, maybe.
Well, and that was my understanding as far as what mermaids, if it did happen, that would have been the way that it would have happened.
Right, yeah. But I mean, mermaids are a fantasy thing. They're mythological creature.
It's became fantastical for sure. It's been produced, like, Hollywoodized kind of idea.
Yeah, it's just like a human body with a fin.
Yeah, right. Just like if you literally cut it in half and just went.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean,
could you imagine? Like, that's just so ridiculous. That, like,
yeah,
like cat dog, just like right there,
literally. And I mean, they just still have human hands, but what good is that going to do in the water? Like,
yeah,
no, mermaids would never last in a realistic world because there's so many predators.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, no, especially the octopus.
Yeah. That'd be nuts.
It is crazy, though, especially when you think about, and that's what's so awesome, too, regardless of what it is, the differences of all over the world. Like, for instance, like we were just talking about the depths of the ocean there versus like when we mentioned Everest earlier, just the pure variety and variable. That's like, I don't know. The spectrum is just so insane. And when you start to get to this idea of like bioluminescence photoplankton, like what? How has there been so maybe time? And now we're referencing back to this idea of that we thought was irrelevant
right.
and no point to, but like,
well, it only,
like,
and
yes. Is there a line ever drawn?
The only reason it's time is because we say it is.
Right.
I mean, it's time is just the word that we're using. It's just the past. So,
but even the past is just
a concept.
Right, of you referring back to previous experiences.
Yeah. There's nothing to say necessarily why it changed other than time. I mean, time is a man-made construct it's
just a sound.
To create a timeline of here to there. It's time is used to create a beginning point and an end point.
Which is weird because it makes it linear.
Yeah.
Which
the theory, not a theory, the idea, whatever, is that time is linear.
I thought it was relative. Because if you're, at least what I thought, if you're like in space, it's different. But I think they were trying to couple with the idea of gravity. See, what's weird is these are all tied together. And so like when you get to a point where like, well, maybe, but probably not. And then you get to another thing, and you're like, well, maybe, but not you. But I'm just saying for like me.
Right.
And then you realize they all kind of piggyback off of each other, and there's no real like concrete answer.
Yeah, there's no anchor point to all the things.
Yeah, there's no anchor point. Yeah, exactly.
Because gravity is 9.8 meters per second, which is utilizing time. So time is using gravity. But gravity's using time.
Right. It's I kind of get it to a degree that we're relatively just working with the tools that we have in the sense of what we see and observe, but
we're using it in order to be able to grow more, though. Because I feel like,
or is it limiting? Because that's the one thing that gets me about the globe is it makes you feel like an ant. It makes you feel so insignificant, which kind of feels limiting in the sense of like, well, I'm never gonna,
even in the idea of a flat Earth, it's still limiting.
Well,
in what I as an individual can do, we're still not gaining or losing any size.
And I'm not arguing the idea of that, but I think it would at least, if it were to be true, it would show, one, what we are able to do, whether we did it or whether it was an entrapment idea, that there is this achievable idea that you can isolate a place and make it livable in such a vastness area or space that we do have.
Right.
So there's that, but I don't know. It is crazy.
I'm trying to think of something to like compare. The only thing I can think of to say like of roundness is like if we look at the moon. But even that, we can't necessarily say that's a 3D object.
Just a military base.
No,
just kidding.
Maybe.
Maybe
it's just a projection. Yeah. But if you look at the moon, it's round, but it's not necessarily a sphere.
But it also looks like this.
Yeah. Because it's
just like that.
Yeah, just up high a little.
But in its own idea, though, it still appears. I mean, I haven't looked at it in a telescope in quite a long time, but at least to the naked eye, it still appears two-dimensional.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just a giant, like, Batman signal.
Yeah.
It's just a big projector just shooting, displaying it.
I mean, just a two-dimensional world, but what if, man, that'd be wild if we're just in a two-dimensional world that we just picture things, but the way the curvatures and shadows are hitting people just make things look 3D.
It would basically depend all on lighting.
Yeah.
So it would be how you're perceiving the light, and you only have a certain amount of that. So that is, strangely, I think, one of the things that makes sense. it kind of makes sense to me. And three-dimensional in the idea that it takes, I mean, I can see that it kind of, again, creates a shadow, but it takes like a universal perspective to kind of truly like create a whole picture.
Right.
You know, like it takes more than just one person. Like if you just had one person, I mean, sure, there'd be shadows and stuff like that, but would it, I mean, I don't know. It's not like it's dependent on somebody else, but
right.
Yeah.
I mean, even the way that like you would draw something that you see and what I see would end up different.
Sure.
So,
well, and that kind of like gets to this
all perception.
Yeah, and it gets to this kind of beautiful idea of like we all create our own mini universe, and together we create a collective universe. You know,
which
and they are different, but they relatively are foundation. Well, unless we change our own way, they're relatively foundationally similar. Relatively,
we're planted into a personal simulation with limits.
Just physical limits.
Yeah. I mean, we can't like so we can't do things like they were doing in Inception where they're in the dreamscape and they're creating like massive curves and stuff in the earth and like,
well, maybe that's just because they're in a different place. So like, and I guess the comparison would be you'd be able to do that in your dreams.
Right.
And I think the idea with Inception is what is the idea when you take full control of your dreams? I can't remember. Lucid dreaming.
Yes.
Lucid dreaming, where you're able to manipulate.
You control your dream.
Yeah.
You can literally create your dream.
So that's in your own universe, you know, not to go like schizophrenic or some weird mental weird, but it isn't until the limitations are put on until that gets projected to everybody else.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
So, shoot, I think what we decided is if everybody just thought the world's going to just start curving up or however we want it, it'll just start doing it.
Yeah. Everyone thinking at once and it's just going to happen.
Yep. We'll send out the Evite.
I read into this thing. I can't remember how I stumbled across it, but in the Cthulhu mythos, with Cthulhu being an elder god or whatever it may be,
okay,
there's also like a god above them. There's like the main god, then there's the elder gods, but the main one I can't.
It's called the Illuminati.
I can't remember his name exactly, but it's essentially everything is created within his dream.
Oh.
The elder gods had to put him to sleep because he was like such a destructive person or whatever it may be. And that's how the universe was created, was based off of a dream that he's made.
Dang.
And if he were to ever wake up, gone.
I think there's a weird underlining message there.
Dream it.
People, the masses that are asleep allow a reality that maybe those creating the dream want.
Yeah.
But when the masses wake up is when that dream becomes non-existent.
Right.
But then does that make reality non-existent, or does that just mean that hierarchical figure isn't able to manifest that?
Right. Yeah.
All we got to do is stand up.
I mean, I don't know. I'm thinking of like black holes in the universe, for instance.
Uh-huh.
We can't comprehend what a black hole is, we understand there's an event horizon or whatever, but like beyond that, it's just darkness. Everything's being sucked in. But
for now, we're waiting for the Great Awakening.
Yeah. But what if that was part of a brain working? So everything's just disappearing from that section, and that's just flying through space, opening more, waking more.
Okay. And I have thought about that in our kind of coupling with the idea we were just talking about creating your own reality. I think like essentially our brains are just quantum computers, right. Hard to understand exactly what quantum is because there's like some weird non-three-dimensional idea. Yeah, right. It's your hippocampus. No, I'm just kidding. That's your RAM.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought for a second.
Quantum computers.
Yeah, would they it would have to be something different than us, because, or at least giant versions of it. You know what I mean? Because it couldn't be, I couldn't just see somebody else and be like, oh, well, that, that's the person right there kind of thing, because there has to be some sort of difference.
Right.
Yeah. Questioning the 3D reality here with the Brain Buffet.
I mean,
let us know your ideas of reality. And while you're doing it, like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications, because we're going to ask these questions. We're going to figure it out.
Might not figure it out, but we're going to keep asking, blowing our own minds in the time.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
I don't know. I mean, what is real?
Yeah. There's a book there for that.
Yeah.
It really kind of blows my mind, especially, I know we mentioned this before, but Nikola Tesla, vibrations, frequencies, and energy. It makes what you were talking about before with the simulation that we just perceive the things that we see. I mean, obviously, or sense, with our 5 sensations. Unless
6.
Unless you special people out there with 6 sensations, but that's all we have to work with, you know. But that doesn't mean, that means there's so much more out there, you know.
Yeah.
But what is that? It's again trying to take that and put it into this term or make a sound that we don't have to explain it,
right?
But that again, kind of reinforces that simulation idea that
and then it really comes down to like.
Or so, it really could be, I should say.
Then it comes down to like, what's the purpose of anything?
Sure. And that's why I have such a hard time accepting the idea that like it's an accident or some sort of coincidence or some sort of just magical odds of some sort of unpredictable. You know what I mean? Like it just seems so okay. It's so, I don't know.
We have to have we don't have to have a purpose necessarily, but like there's got to be a purpose.
There has to be something.
Somebody out there has a greater idea in mind.
Unless it's like the true Matrix and we're all just a bunch of corporation slaves stuck in a tube and,
this is just the rest of our lives.
our purpose is to be an energy source.
Yeah, it's literally to create for...
I can't accept that sad reality, though.
No. I don't want to. I mean, I feel like that makes existence worthless.
Sure. And that's
I feel like it's more worth wondering what is worth existing for.
And I think that's why we get along so well.
Yeah. It's not worth just accepting that the corporate ideas are forever. It's just that's the purpose of life. The purpose isn't to go to work, wake up, pay bills. That's not the purpose. The purpose isn't to serve someone and sell your body your entire life.
Exactly. It doesn't make sense. And for us just to accept it, I mean, to be honest, it's kind of sad that we've let it last as long as it has.
Yeah.
It really is ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. And it's kind of a rough thing, but like people get upset over like prostitution and stuff like that. And like they're like, oh, prostitution's terrible. You're an awful person. But like, we're all selling our bodies.
Sure.
It doesn't,
there's, I guess, just a level of respect and exposure that you are, because I guess the idea is, again, y'all can do what you want, but I guess that's the difference, because you're right. We are all getting worked, and taxed the same way. If anything, there might be avoiding some taxes, but I think the idea is the lack of respect that one has to choose to do something like that, because, you know, and again, a personal choice, but it's fair to assume just like somebody making ill-advised health choices, whether it be drugs or food choices, it's a lack of respect for your body, you know?
To an extent, yes. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I understand it's like it's a blanket statement kind of, but
it is the oldest
but we are
profession.
Yeah, I mean, we are selling our bodies though. Like, it's what we do on a day-to-day basis, no matter what. Like, we are disrespecting our own bodies by doing the things that we have to do, or our mentality, like
complying.
Yeah, you work more in the customer service type area, so you deal with like the mental stress of it, having to deal with customers and such like that. So it exhausts you.
Sure. It's definitely exhausting.
It burns your brain out. I work in the physical aspect where I do manual labor. I am breaking my body.
Literally hands, back.
I am beat up at any given time. So, like, I don't know. I mean, we're all selling our bodies, but like, there's got to be more than that.
Right. I mean, the world still has to go around. It doesn't have to go around the way that we've grown to accept it.
Go in a circle. It doesn't have to go around.
Who's to say if it even rotates? But what I mean is it's got to progress.
Yeah.
You know, it's not stopping for anyone.
No.
But does it have to progress the same way that it always has? And by that, you really have to boil it down to the fundamentals, whether it be finances, housing,
right?
All, food, healthcare, that sort of stuff.
Does it need to progress at the cost of humans?
I mean, thought experiment, I don't think so. Why would it have to?
Right.
It seems so crazy to me that, again, we should be such in a futuristic state right now.
Yeah.
You know? Not that I want...
Like...
I mean, I do. Kind of, that'd be awesome to be able to travel.
I mean, even
like
China, for instance, is... People... They have such poor safety standards there.
When you have suicide nets, it's a real deal.
Yeah, but like at any given moment within building or anything like that, so many people just die. Like, it's literally at the expense of people. If you look at like the Great Wall of China, there's literally bodies within the Wall of China. Like, it's been an entire existence of trying to grow the earth at the expense of humans.
And I think it's so weird because it kind of boils down to this idea of like reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
And I think that's the wrong question. I think the question is, why are we even still using the wheel?
Why are we stuck on the wheel?
Yeah. You know, like if it's true that Fred Flintstone was using wheels, like we should be better than that.
Right, yeah.
Like,
I mean,
sure, it's rubber now and not stones, but
yeah,
still.
It's just unbelievable the things that have.
And I guess we have planes now. It's different. So, I mean, they still technically have wheels, but
yeah,
it's still not getting around that, I suppose.
No, there's still wheels.
Even boats use like rubber wheels or sometimes to stop the boats from the docks.
Yeah.
I guess there's actual bumpers or buoys for it, but I don't know. I think that's part of the reason why, like we had the Industrial Revolution and it doesn't seem like it's like we went informational. I think that's kind of the idea then is like it went computer and informational, but
what's been growing though?
Those
even
areas
informational,
so
like, okay, so I mean, we can look at what's been growing informationally. What? Facebook, Instagram, social media.
I think those would be more like technology, social technologies through it. I mean, more so information that like you can access.
Yeah,
anything.
Which is still based off of technology, though. I mean,
right. Well, that's what
it's accessed off of technology.
Right.
Yeah.
And I guess an evolution of knowledge would come down to truth, learning or finding out that maybe some things weren't true, because then you're evolving as far as information and knowledge goes.
And not accepting your complacency.
Yeah.
In your current situations.
That's huge. It really is huge.
We talk about that almost every single podcast.
We do, but it's so important.
It is, yeah. Absolutely. To break the complacency so people will
comfort it or growth is what is it? Comfort is a growth killer.
Yeah. And I mean, as it stands, we still have to like there has to be work and such like that. People still need to work, but in the way that it's done doesn't make a lot of sense.
Well, the first thing is the fact that they're taxed on it. And I know we referenced this before, and I don't really want to go down like a whole financial idea of it because it gets super exhausting, but truly conceptualizing the idea that, like you said before, you're essentially selling your body, whether it's mentally or physically. You are selling yourself for a period of time, and you're told you're going to make a certain amount of money per period of time.
Right.
And then when you go to collect that money for said period of time, they then get their sticky fingers in there and take some of that.
Yeah.
Like, okay, they're telling us it goes to whatever. But how can that can be restructured? That should not be the way that it works.
Think about this really quick. So they say they have to take our tax dollars in order to pay for things.
Mm-hmm.
They just printed $1.9 trillion to give to people. Why can't they just print money to take care of things?
Yeah, that's what they're... I mean, I don't know if they're taking care of things, but they sure are printing money.
Why can't they... I know, but like, why can't they print money to give to the government? Why can't they print money to give to buy supplies or whatever?
Well, and it's not... The simple answer is the more that you print, the lower the value it gets. It's kind of hard to like... I mean, they're doing that anyways. It really boils down to efficiency. It boils down to efficiency of the use. But we've talked about the Federal Reserve before and how the whole thing's a sham to begin with.
Right. Yeah, it is.
But what I want to ask, and I'm curious, what is there an how is it going to change? Like, is there a singular moment where something happens and then all of a sudden we just like, hate to use this word, but like wake up and realize that like, oh, wow, what have we been doing for 25,000 years or however long we've been here, you know, or, I mean, it has to happen incrementally to a degree. If you're going full system, I mean, again, you have to think about the internet's involved, right? You know? You'd have to literally shut down the internet for a period of time. There would have to be a legit reboot, as if you're rebooting a PC.
Right. And the growth would have to be so absolutely exponentially fast.
But what is going to be, and I was thinking about this the other night, what a beautiful silver lining is if it is successful, it has to start in the local community level.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to just say like, oh, this state, let's just do it. You know what I mean? Because there's going to be a lack of communication to where you're only going to be able to physically do what you can physically see kind of thing, you know, without traveling as far.
What I fear is going to end up happening with a potential growth is I feel like it's going to start at the top of the top for a change. And then it's going to trickle down over everybody else, even beyond the federal government.
In the sense of finances or in the sense of technology?
In the sense of existence. In general, entirely.
Physically or consciously?
I mean, not necessarily our bodies changing physically.
So I'm asking, are they like merging with technology then?
No, I more so mean in the powers of the world.
Well, the Khazarian Mafia has done that forever. Yeah.
So there's going to be a thing they're going to say they're going to change everything. And the change will initially sound good. People will be like, okay, this change sounds okay. For whatever it may be. You can call it finances, government.
The Great Reset.
Yeah. It'll end up being a great reset. But what my fear is it'll actually end up ruining the world. Because it's going to be these global elites.
So you're right. And that's why, well, that was the idea.
Yeah.
From my understanding. However, I think that idea was hijacked.
Yeah.
And was used as an opportunity to institute a more humanitarian process system,
right.
You know? At least it sucks because again, what kind of my starting question is what is the trigger? What happens for it to happen? Because, I mean,
it has to be an elite that triggers it.
Okay. And I do agree.
I don't think that necessarily an individual from a community is going to trigger this massive event.
Okay, no, gotcha, definitely, no, for sure.
But
little Jimmy down in the cul-de-sac over there is not gonna like just come out and be like, oh, you know what, ding,
right.
But even still, so regardless of who it is, what is it that's done? Like, is it a button that just like, you know? I mean, is it a plug that you unplug a giant computer from? You know, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I mean, if we're a simulation, yes, turn it off and on.
So then,
I don't like the simulation.
What happens there? Do we drop as like biological things, or do we like flicker in and out until we come back?
I think it is the end of us.
Oh, as we know it, or
yes. I don't think we would reawake.
So you think the experiment's over? Potentially.
Yeah. Yes. In theory.
Interesting.
What
if let me propose something. What if the experiment is over for those that want to enslave us?
Possible.
And the light is potentially at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Not to throw a carrot out there and start, waving.
Well, let's say we're not even a simulation, but we're still an experiment. What if we were planted here by aliens from another galaxy or whatever it may be? We're planted here by aliens as a science experiment, and then what if they come in and they decide to reset? Not even necessarily.
So, and I guess more so, besides for the starting point and the end point, I'm more so looking in the in between. Is that them coming down and again pulling a plug, or is that them coming down and like just saying
killing
like,
a bunch of people,
poof, and then everybody's hearts explode?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I mean, what's actually going to happen? I mean, so I think this is going to be a very bold statement, but is going to be the elimination of global elites.
Yeah.
I think that will be the middle ground. There will be a starting point, which who knows?
I read something, and you're going down a right path, and I'm going to hand it right back off to you. But the starting point that I was reading is, remember how you're talking about black holes? Well, they always told us that there was a black hole at the center of our galaxy, right?
Right.
Well, what if that was that period of darkness?
Yeah.
What if we're transitioning out of that, and maybe there's like some sort of galactic center that is basically a sun that now going to shine light, and kind of coupling with the whole Nikola Tesla thing is about vibrations, frequency, and energies. What if that in its own sense raises vibrational frequencies for people?
Right.
And I don't know, maybe it turns into some weird place where you're like, hi, Bob. Hi, Jimmy. Hey, what are you doing? You want a casserole? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it doesn't sound so, I mean, it sounds like super corny now, but.
So, I mean, essentially the black hole in the center of our galaxy would be the dark time.
Yeah.
And then transitioning would be not necessarily a sun or whatever, but maybe like a lightning time.
Sure.
A white hole.
We don't have to put labels of colors on it. Yeah. But there is some sort of difference. I mean, again, I don't know this for certain. I just read it and it seemed an interesting theory.
Yeah. It's a cool concept.
Yeah. Especially this idea that clearly we were in a period of darkness for sure.
Right.
Some of us have been much more blessed than others, but
yeah,
some of the things that have been going on, I mean, again, it has to stop.
Decades.
Maybe even longer.
Yeah. Centuries. I mean, we can take it back to centuries. But like you said, the starting point is very subjective about how that could happen, because who knows? But I think one of the biggest things that will happen in a transitioning period will be an elimination of the global elites. That doesn't necessarily mean death or whatever it may be, but removal from power in one way or another.
Do you really think that you would just be able to strip somebody like that of power? I mean, and again, think about this as potential. I mean, I'm assuming we're talking about the people who also can press the button to print money.
Yeah. Take away the ability.
I would have
if you take away that ability from somebody, then where's their power lying? And if you want to keep taking it down the line,
I guess we would have to trust that there's going to be no attempt to grab it back.
Yeah.
Because we couldn't let it go back.
No.
There's no going back. And that, in a weird way, it kind of feels like an avalanche, because once you get going, I mean, you're not turning around. Yeah. It is going to happen.
It's the snowball effect.
Exactly. Yeah, the snowball effect.
It's getting massive and goes faster. Yeah. No, for sure.
And there's a lot of crazy things going on right now in the sense of like, I mean, just in the current news with election audit going on and potentially some substance there that shouldn't be, or something that could be foundational, and that just kind of goes with the domino effect,
Oh yeah, for sure.
But it's still grasp a hold this idea that our reality is changing.
Oh yeah.
And it's so hard to kind of visualize and kind of, and again, because I think we just have sci-fi movies. That's all we have to compare it to.
Right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, what's the end point? I mean, there's two endpoints.
That would mean that there have to be an endpoint.
Right. I mean, realistically, a transitional phase doesn't end. Phases don't necessarily end unless there's a start of a new one.
Well, even something such like death, that's an end for this meat vehicle.
Yeah.
But
what goes beyond that?
Right. So even in that own sense, I mean, again, what if that's like, in a weird way, we're in a dark phase right now, because even that, we're only limited to a certain amount of light that we can see. I don't know.
What if when you died, you woke up and like game over from a video game, and you wake up from a sleep deprivation tube or whatever it may be.
Jimmy, how far did you make it this time?
I got to level 70.
Level 70. Colon cancer really kicked in. Told you shouldn't have ate all that progressive soup and fries.
I mean, think about even video games we play. Like, what if that's how the characters feel? Like,
well, that would have to go with the idea that the characters actually feel something. But yes, okay.
But there's the CPU in a computer that is the brain. What if that's the brain of the characters you're utilizing operating? And when you're not playing, they're sleeping.
Well, in a weird way, it kind of goes with like the whole Sims idea.
Yeah.
What happens to them when you're not playing? What are they doing?
Sleep.
Are the lights just turned off?
My Tamagotchi is still sleeping from when I was like 3.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It is weird though, because I mean, who knows? And then I think about this too, though. Like sometimes even with The Sims, I mean, it's so weird to even kind of keep it with that, but you can have free will in there in the sense of like they'll just start doing things on their own.
Right.
And
it's kind of.
Have you ever felt indecisive? What if that's you waiting on just an input?
Yeah. Or like you go into a room and you forget what you're doing.
I always told that was an alien coming in and he did a Men in Black thing on you.
I've always thought of it as like a sim being you had an action and they turned it off and like you
completed
forgot.
Walk there.
Yeah. Now what?
Dishes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's what I wanted to do.
Dude, I've played that actually in the past like 6 to 8 months or so. It was kind of, I got into a very creative. That's the one beautiful thing about it, is the creativity that you could do as far as like building houses and et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, imagine how creative you can be with an entire universe.
If you were in control of that printing machine.
Yeah. Not even necessarily the machine. The machine's just a part of this dot.
So you mean like a magical fairy wand that you can just poof? Because
I mean,
in a weird way, think about this though. In a weird way, that is a form of magic, meaning they're taking nothing, turning it into something that we all revere and accept, and creating wealth. Yeah. They're literally creating, like they're out of thin air. They're creating wealth.
Right.
Which
you print $1 million, now someone's a millionaire if you give it to them.
Only them though.
Yeah.
You sure as heck can't be doing it at your own home printer.
No. Yeah, I don't know.
That is illegal. Don't do that.
Been proven to be illegal. That is a fact.
Yeah, you don't have the elite status to be able to print.
No, you haven't got the right printer paper.
Exactly, and the ink too. Apparently.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, what if we're just one person simulation? We're just a part of one person simulation.
Well, that's what's so. And again,
that's kind of come down to like what Sims is.
Connectivity of everything with the whole. Remember, I think I told you the one time about the 100 monkey experiment where there was like potatoes or something given to them, but they were just put in the sand, and then it wasn't until they figured to wash them out. So I don't want to use a hive mind idea, but yeah, what if there is this collective consciousness concept and that again, we all are mini universes creating the big universe.
Yeah.
But once you get up that ladder, you would like to think that it's your elected officials telling you what to do. But as we're finding out, oftentimes that's not the case. So
Yeah.
then you're getting literally individual private people who are telling you how to live your life, and you had no choice in putting them in that position to do it.
Right.
You know? Like, so again, we're all just complying to this reality that they've been told that they told us that we need to comply to.
And then someone told them.
Well, or or they were the ones to craft it up.
Yeah.
You know, depending on how far up the ladder you want to go.
Yeah.
Somebody crafted it. And I'm sure, you know, it gets disseminated.
That's going back into time. I mean,
it definitely didn't happen overnight.
No, that's the theoretical timeline that we have.
Right.
So,
but even that though, so if that is true, how can we even believe historical events in the sense of what they were? Okay, I'm not saying that you can't date certain things back, but the context of the story behind it, what might have actually went on, whether
I mean, if you go to like Germany, for instance, Germany denies all of Nazi Germany.
That's crazy.
They don't accept that. They don't believe that happened. In their minds, that didn't happen. Meanwhile, in our history books, it's all
we do have some German viewers out there. So if we're wrong, let us know. You know, we're curious about your opinion. Do you have family members who, have a strong, I mean, obviously, I think there's a general understanding of the evilness behind the actions.
Yeah, no matter.
But it, you weren't necessarily personally involved with it. So you can still condone, not accept that as your own personal, obviously beliefs or anything like that, but still have this acceptance of reality.
Yeah. Yeah. The knowledge of it happening. You don't necessarily, you're not saying that you are this person or you believe in this. It's just that it happened within your country.
Right.
Essentially. Which it's wild to me that it's denied. Like, but in our history books, we're told of this Nazi Germany where there's concentration camps and all this other type of stuff. But are they trying to paint a picture?
What if that just boils down to indoctrination? And it kind of like, again, like,
which I mean,
who's to say the things that they're being taught? I mean, let's just use China. Things that being taught in China about Americans is actually true to what Americans actually think, feel, and are.
Right.
So.
Yeah.
I mean, the indoctrination in the education system, and it boils down to fundamentals. The whole system needs to change.
Yeah.
It needs to change.
Yeah, from the core.
It's not working. Again, I know I said this earlier, but the fact that it took us this long, I guess it didn't take us this long to realize that it's not working, but for something to be actually done. I mean, I know there was, some historical events such as, JFK and Abraham Lincoln who have made, I mean, those are perfect examples of people who have made reality changes for the benefit of humanity.
Right.
Or tried to. Some were cut short.
As far as we know.
Yes.
They're the people that were put down on the paper that said they were the ones that made the changes.
Yeah. Those were the words that were on the paper that I had to read.
Yeah. That I had to.
Exactly.
I had to read it. Yeah.
Or I was cast out of society as a loser.
Yeah. But the things that we're taught we don't know are true. It's just what we're taught,
until you
what we're forced to learn.
It.
And you can't.
Well, to a degree, because, home ec, I can cook eggs and realize that if I cook them so,
yes.
And I know that was a very simple example, but certain things can be done to where you can at least, okay, that does make sense.
But even like history and such, you can't even trust video. Which, I mean, video isn't going back to the time of Abraham Lincoln, George Washington and such. Right. But like being shown the video of the NASA moon landing, that doesn't hold any solid ground because it's just a video. Yeah. I've seen tons of videos that literally say they're edited about anything. And what people are capable of creating out of a video.
The creation aspect of it. So it being staged, I mean, technology absolutely there. But the further back you go, I don't think you're actually like video editing, meaning like cutting and splicing, because you can super tell. But as you know, obviously technology is advanced. CGI and all that stuff like that is so crazy anymore that now anymore you can.
Well, I mean, if you want to go that far, if you want to go back to like the moon landing and stuff, though, NASA's technology was not equivalent to the average human's technology. They had more power in what they were capable of doing within technology than what
we were understanding at the time.
Yes.
Well, I mean,
that could even be said to be true as the government stands today.
Sure. I would think it's probably more exponential than we even think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that
I mean, if you want to go into like the the whole Edward Snowden thing.
Yeah.
He was the CIA agent.
NSA, but yes.
He was in the CIA.
Could have been. Maybe, I don't know how
he was. Like I just watched a documentary. He was in the CIA, NSA as well. And he was a subcontractor for one of the divisions of the government somewhere.
Yeah.
But he got into the system and you can see everything that someone is doing. The average human doesn't have access to that.
No.
The average person doesn't.
Nor should they.
No, not even the government should.
Exactly. That's what I was going to
Nobody should have that power. Nobody should hold that.
Right.
But they did.
Yeah.
And I'm still do. It's supposed to be banned. There was supposed to be a law passed that's not allowing it.
Well, it kind of comes, you're so right, but they don't take away something to give it back. That's not how it works.
No.
But with that, I mean, so anything can be corrupted. You know what I mean? And I think that just kind of coincides with our frequency of reality right now. You know, it's not. I mean, again, people have their own wherewithal and their own mental fortitude to make their own decisions. You know, free will is absolutely a real thing, but it's not very easy. You know, and nor that it should be. You know, rainbows and lollipops, anyways. But some people aren't the best at dealing with the hand that they were dealt, and I'm not justifying anything, but because of that, what if that was removed? What if those binding constrictions of, again, the limitations of the system that we're in right now, you know, if that were removed, then we would literally be going into an age of prosperity.
Right. If there was no more
bondage of just financial and emotional
of a hand being dealt.
Yeah.
No more dealing.
Exactly. Like, no more dealing.
Just is.
We're calling the dealer out here.
Yeah. Just exist.
Right.
Just be.
Hopefully.
Like, I mean, that's a beautiful world.
It is.
Just existing.
And you'd still, it would just be reimagined, you know.
Right.
The structures and foundations would still have to be, you know, but they would have to be, you know, reimagined. And the fact that we haven't done that yet, again, I know I've said this before, but it just blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like,
it's hard to think about what even the world. What?
I've always felt as a kid like somebody's playing a game. Yeah. Like, this is a game. Like, I mean, not like a literal game in the sense that, like, I mean, there's definitely winners and losers, but it's controlled, it's manipulated. Yeah. It's not on its own, you know. It's not free flowing in the sense of organic.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's hard for me to even kind of like conceive, because the things that could be possible.
Yeah.
You know? And with what you were talking about as far as the technologies go, I mean, there were talks that there's going to be a lot of technologies that's going to be released to us. You know, we've talked about, you know, Nikola Tesla and the free energy idea, but that's just the start. Yeah.
I mean, then what comes with it?
Have I told you about the med beds that I've heard about?
Mm-mm.
So the med beds, I think there's 3 types, and I don't know this for certain. I have seen pictures, but those could be edited, but they did look very logistically sound. Not that I know, you know, medical radiology equipment or anything like that.
Right.
but it did seem to relatively make sense. But okay, So when you say you're, I think this was actually the analogy the person used, but say your washing machine broke. What do? If you can't fix it with what you got, you take it to the manufacturer, right?
Right.
So in the same sense with your body, if you can't fix it in your own sense, take it to the creator, the manufacturer, whatever that is, you know?
Yeah.
So if you could make a machine that magnified that connection to the, and lack of better words, but just for sake of explanation, the manufacturer, you know,
Right.
you would, at least in a common sense idea, would be able to fix it.
Yeah.
You know? And then that kind of gets this idea with like maybe we have quantum computer wetware in our heads, and that's the connection between this world of quantum that we're slowly starting to learn about. But I mean, I've heard that one of them can regrow limbs. So like an amputee can regrow limbs.
About that then, yeah.
Certain medical conditions and cancers and stuff like that.
Right.
Like I don't know where the line is drawn, meaning I don't know. It doesn't seem to have. Okay. So one of the paths of this whole great reset is like a very evil agenda of like, you know, microchipping people, like this very technologically AI infused idea.
Yeah.
Where this seems to be more enhancing our own consciousness or quantum computing skills, you know, our own intellectual abilities.
Yeah.
And so it has a little bit more of an organic feel, you know? And so, because I mean, let's just think about it. One of the craziest things is that not to go down the whole shot jab conversation, but when I was talking to some people about it, they were like, oh, well, what? The government's going to track me more as if they don't already. But
why is that so accepted?
First of all, correct. Why is that so accepted? But on the second, too, you got to go more than just surface level with it. If they put an electrical, I mean, your brain is electrical connections.
Yes.
If you have electrical stimulus to said directed area, you can literally change the way people think and feel.
Or you can even control their limbs.
You can control, exactly. So you literally lose your autonomy.
Yeah.
You know?
And they can take that to the point where they're learning everything, like what you ingest, where you go on the daily basis,
how often you breathe,
like
how deep your breaths are.
You can,
when you're thinking about someone else,
you can set your phone somewhere and walk away from it.
Right.
You can't take a chip out your arm and walk away from it unless you cut yourself open.
But even a chip kind of seems like 90s sci-fi. I think with the technology that they have, I mean, I've saw these things called like nanobots and stuff like that. Like it could just be a cluster of tiny things that grasp hold and maybe group together or replicate, or I don't know.
Almost like a virus.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're just installing a virus into you. You now have malware.
Yeah. And have you seen some of the figures that some of these companies are making? I can't remember.
I don't even want to look.
It was like, I can't remember exactly. So again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was like $15 billion or something for like Pfizer or something like that.
Oh, at least.
But in the time span that it's been going, you know, you have to think about that.
The vaccine has been last 6 months or so, right? It's not that long. I know that.
$15 billion.
Yeah.
That's...
And it's going to go up because, I mean, you're supposed to get this vaccine every 6 months.
Yeah, now. Then, I mean, I'm not a doctor, but I wouldn't be surprised if you had to get another booster 6 months after that.
Yeah.
Then another booster 3 months after that.
Yeah.
Then another booster a month. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah. And it still won't be FDA or CDC approved.
Well, that's what's so crazy, too, is the fact that, like, if this national emergency wasn't even still going, it would be illegal.
Yeah. Literally. It's literally only approved because we're in an emergency.
Exactly.
That's it.
If not even that, I mean, take ethics aside, it would literally be criminally illegal to do.
Yeah.
You would not be able to do that.
Yeah.
Which
the owner of the company would literally be in prison.
Are they going to be held accountable? Is that where these criminals, these elite, are going to be held accountable?
No. Never.
So then their system,
who can hold them accountable?
well, that's kind of what I was getting at. I don't think you can. I don't think you're ever going to be able to just remove them from power.
No.
You would have to, I mean, hold them accountable in the sense that they would have to lose their life.
Yeah.
You know, because
what's scary though is I feel like there's always going to be someone trying to move back into that position.
Well, that creates a vacuum. Sure.
Yeah.
So that's why it would be so important to very quickly spread on a local level all across the world awareness and a new system that we all work together for, you know, because you're right. Well, and I guess the question would be is, I think what we're talking about, it's very one or the other, you know.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of I don't think there's any commingling, to be honest with you.
No.
At some point you have to choose. And if you eradicate all those, not that bad isn't going to exist. There's
always going to be bad.
But there's a difference between bad and evil.
Yeah.
You know?
Right.
And if you can eradicate that, I mean, again, though, even the Bible says there's only 1,000 years of peace. And then after that, you know, darkness returns.
Right.
I guess we just got to take advantage of those 1,000 years, you know?
Right.
And hopefully the system, though, if the system is in place, I mean, as we found out, it's pretty hard to change.
Yeah, definitely. Because, I mean, there's been people that have tried. I mean, it just like...
JFK was one of them.
Yeah. And with the power that is in almost anybody's hands anymore, it's so easy to eliminate whistleblowers.
Oh, yeah. Especially if you control the media. Because you can get people to hate them.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And the media has to answer to the elite.
When you're, I think it's owned by 6 corporations?
Yeah.
All mainstream media, I think it's like 99.8 or something like that. Mainstream media networks are owned by the same 6 corporations.
Yeah. You know what's amazing is anytime there is someone that goes against someone saying anything, there's a disappearance. And not
Sadly
only
enough.
of that person, their family, their close family generally. Like, it's insane.
Yeah.
And
that's why justice has to be held.
It's kind of so easy to link that. Really. It's almost like they're leaving it traceable.
Well, again, if you control the media, how does that get out?
Yeah.
You know, unless you're in that local community and you know about so and so, so and so, and so and so because you were there, or you heard from Susie or Jenny or
whatever.
Whoever.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know.
No. And
not to get into, I know we touched a little bit last time about oppression and stuff, not to get down that, but any loss of life is horrible, but you got to be careful on what you magnify.
Right.
Because there's loss of life all across the board, and it's horrible. It's tragic.
Right.
Especially if it's intentional. I mean, again, it's horrible regardless, but if it's an intentional act of murder, it's just disgraceful. It's really just, they should be held to all accountability. But you have to be careful on what the magnifying glass is over.
Right.
It's kind of the point that I was getting at there.
But it's almost even worse though when the loss of life is over hiding information.
Yeah, because that just kind of confirms that there's a nefarious act in play.
There's just a problem. It's extremely clear that there's a problem if you're trying to hide or withhold any information from...
But there's also a level of control to be able to silence someone.
Yeah.
And get away with it.
Yeah.
What?
And not be held accountable at all.
But yet, anybody else on a more citizen level who doesn't have connections, they're going to be held accountable for anything that they do.
Right.
Those parking tickets, you name it. I mean, some people have luck. Well, I don't really believe in luck, to be honest with you. It doesn't fit in the concept of what we've been talking about, you know? Because luck leaves for some sort of strange, spontaneous, magical thing that could just kind of poof, you know?
Right.
Where it's hard for me to grasp.
Yeah. It kind of makes me think, though, like, as far as people not being held accountable goes, so I filed my tax returns extremely early. Like, It was like February 12th before they even actually start accepting them. Like the 15th when they start accepting whatever it may be.
Yeah.
But mine were delayed by like over a month, like over a month and a half. So normally you get them, they start sending them out like early March, like March 1st through the 10th is normally when I get it, because I always file pretty early to get it done. And it took until like the beginning of this month, April, or like it's like April 10th or something like that. I was like, geez. It's like,
well, that would be one of the things that would change.
Yeah, but I was getting a tax return, but next year, if I have to owe money in and I am late, oh, I am screwed.
Oh, for sure. For sure. And thankfully you're not famous, because they'd make an example of you.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. One way or another.
But that should be questioned in its own sense. Things have been, and I know the narrative has been because of coronavirus, but people do go in person to deal with their taxes, but most people do it online, or they drop off their information to their accountant and they do it online or whatever like that. So why? And maybe it's finances just on funds, but you'd think you'd want that return back quicker, you know? But what I'm getting at is why the differences? Why now?
Right. Yeah.
You know? Why, like you said, why did it take an extra, like 2 months to get here?
Essentially, yeah. Like, why? Yeah, it doesn't make sense. And they're saying because of the stimulus and stuff, like stimulus package, whatever, certain laws that wrote into it. But like, I've seen other people getting theirs just fine.
Maybe the printer's breaking.
Running out of money to print.
Maybe the paper, the ink got jammed or something. I
don't know. It's just wild.
That is weird though.
But there's no accountability held towards that.
Right. It is what it is.
But as soon as there's...
Well, Brennan, you clicked agree on the terms of services and conditions that exempted any liability for late fees for them.
And the funny part is you click the agree button when you're born. When you didn't even agree to being born.
Your parents signed it.
Yeah.
Your
parents signed your birth certificate, which was your agreement to serve the nation.
Think about that too, though. Why a piece of paper? A piece of paper. Like, you're born into this reality and
because they're able to file it and log it.
There you go. You know, like what huh. And
for what?
I love the thought experiment of names.
Yeah.
Because it's so, it really boils down to how malleable everything kind of is. Because again, you're just creating a sound that you want to label this now biological being that's living. Now that is what that thing is categorized.
Right.
Or you know.
Yeah. It's just
whatever.
Random sound.
Yeah. But
everything's random sound, really. I mean, it's just perceived into our ears, and it's coming back to perception.
Yeah, well, vibrations, frequencies, and energies.
Yeah.
It's so crazy how everything ties into that.
Yeah.
You know?
But we aren't able to live off of that.
Well, how do we know?
I mean, in the sense of like the way we're governed and controlled.
And what I mean is like when I first started to question things, and I'm not trying to, I do like conspiracy theories, but it's more so conspiracy theories so that I can just go for thought experiments. Just kind of like literally just what if. But what really started it for me is I watched this kid. I say kid, I think he was like 16 or something at the time. So he's definitely a kid, but he meditated for like 80 something days or something like that straight.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't eat. He didn't drink. He ended up being able to control his body temperature.
Yeah.
And so like, what if it made me then question like, oh, okay, hold on. I'm not saying I can do that, but why do I have to accept everybody else's sayings of how to live if this kid can clearly do things that are totally different? And I didn't think he was shooting lasers out of his eyes, so it's not like he's Superman or nothing.
Right.
He just found something.
Yeah.
Or tapped into something or whatever.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I mean,
it really kind of made me start questioning the reality. Like this kid started sweating and then it just like stopped. Like he just like he beaded some sweat and then like he like took control of his body temperature.
Right.
And then like it just immediately like cooled down. And they had like a temperature gun on him.
Yeah. Meditation's powerful.
But what is that? And I don't mean that in like a kind of rhetorical, because meditation is just, in my understanding, an observation of the disconnection of thoughts, meaning you're actually in control of your thoughts. Your thoughts are not in control of you. And from that allows you to have more clarity.
It's almost like shutting off to turn on.
I think a one way that it was kind of explained to me is sleeping is unconscious meditation and meditation is conscious sleeping.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
But one thing, have you ever had like a physical sensation from it? Like tingling, anything like that?
Yeah, kind of.
Because I have had it sometimes.
Yeah.
And at first it was kind of alarming because, again, I was thinking like, oh, well, I'm just going to be peaceful. You know, I'm just going to learn how to live in the moment, disconnect a little bit from all these inputs. But then I started having a physical reaction or stimulation, in the sense of like literally like tingles going throughout my body, starting at the top of my head. And I was like, what is this?
Right.
Like,
yeah, it's weird. And then it kind of scares you and almost jolts you out of it.
Yeah. Well, there was definitely an awareness shock there.
Yeah.
I don't want to say an epiphany, but like, again, though, how am I to comprehend that there is a physical reaction of me not doing anything physical?
Right.
Like, the point of it is to turn off physically.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's where it kind of led me. And then I was just like, whoa. And then I started going down all sorts of different thoughts and theories. And
then that kind of throws it off. And it's like,
well, you definitely get off on some stray paths. But one thing that I've kind of, when, and this is just my beliefs, but when you can really tap into and experience that, I mean, God, source, oneness, whatever it is that you want to call it. I don't want to like label religions or whatever, but you realize, like, I don't know, like there's some sort of kind of like an extra voice, like not an extra voice, but a clarity of you're not all these other things.
Within yourself.
Yeah, within yourself.
Yeah.
Like a connection to that,
It's almost like
I feel like I kind of went on a weird circle there.
It's like I am God.
Yes, without the connotation
of
you being superior to somebody else.
Right.
Because they would also be God. We're all God, essentially.
Exactly. We're all gods within ourselves.
Which, I mean, all religions have relatively become corrupt over time, but that is a lot of fundamental idea of like they said you remain in God's image, so like you are God, but you're not like, I would hate to say that he'd have to experience this physical idea, maybe that's our point. Maybe our purpose is to have these experiences, to learn and grow. Maybe that's why some people get shitty hands.
Yeah. It's the way to, it's the way you view yourself.
Sure.
Very much so. Yeah. Like, people who are constantly looking down on themselves aren't necessarily dealt bad hands, but they continue to allow themselves to have bad hands by looking down upon themselves.
In a weird way, yes, I completely agree. In a weird way, it's kind of karma. The more that you perceive your reality as bad, the more reality is going to just be bad, because that's just how you're perceiving it.
Yeah, and it's how you're creating your reality. You got to speak your reality into existence.
Sure. You got to do the action.
Speak it into existence.
Yeah.
If you speak it, eventually, if you say something enough times, you will believe it. So if you constantly are saying over and over, I am God, or whatever it may be, whatever positivity it may be about yourselves, thinking of yourselves in a higher form than you were speaking of yourself, it will lift you.
Yes. Constantly.
And you'll believe it. If I constantly say, I am great, eventually, I'm really going to believe that I am great.
Dude, positive affirmations. Positive affirmations are so crucial. And I tell a lot of people who have severe anxiety, I say, at first I boil it down. So why do you have severe anxiety? Like, why are you anxious? And usually, not all the time, but it's like, oh, well, there's these voices that tell me I'm not good at this, or I'm not going to do that, or I'm no good, or I'm not, pretty, or I'm not good looking, or all these negative things that just kind of pile together. And it's kind of like a death by 1,000 cuts, you know,
Right.
just
Yeah.
a bunch of little things just kind of
Right.
swarm you and you just feel amassed.
Right.
But part of meditation is realizing you're detached from that and realizing that you're not those things. But in the same sense, realizing that you think those things because those are just maybe the lack of awareness of being able to filter those things through.
Yeah.
But also your perception of those things. And if you could change that perception and just what you think of yourself and what you say, I mean, you're gonna replace those constant negative thoughts with constant positive thoughts. And it's not gonna happen in a day, but you can program yourself.
Yeah. Also, a large thing that comes into the constant negative thoughts that you're speaking of, though, is like the media that you are taking in.
Yeah.
If you're constantly online looking at like these extremely fake people, which is the majority of social media in general,
and celebrities,
or celebrities, news, whatever it may be, these extremely fake people, they're literally caked in makeup. They have Botox. They have whatever it may be modified on their body to be done. It's going to give you a lowered self-esteem because you are real.
Yeah. That's fake. Yeah. But they glorify fake.
But they're glorifying the fakeness of it instead of what is real.
And take that same idea, because that poses so many negative mental effects for especially women, but men also.
And kids.
Sure.
I mean,
boys and girls too.
Yes. Yeah.
But think about I remember when we were talking about ancient civilization, or I'm sorry, indigenous tribes.
Yes.
If you don't know something, you don't know it.
Yeah.
So was it on accident? Was it on purpose? Why are we exposed to these things? You know, and I'm not saying cancel people, but there's clearly a pedestal.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem. The problem is the media that we are exposed to doesn't have an even playing field.
No. And it comes back to control. When it's literally controlling people's thoughts.
Yeah. It's
when people constantly tell themselves I can't, it will go beyond what they don't really think they can do anymore, to the point of where they think they can't do the things they can really do.
It's ripples effects.
Where they're like, they were great at something. They were an amazing whatever.
Yeah.
But eventually they had all these negative thoughts that down the line it dwindled this. And it's like, oh, I can't now. All of a sudden they can't.
Your computer.
It's okay.
Okay.
It's still on. It's recording.
Yeah.
But yeah, they say they can't so much that they think they can't do the thing that they used to be really great at.
It kind of molds it. It kind of like it creates like a concrete barrier almost over time. If I could kind of surmise what you were getting at there, limiting yourself with just the words I can't is so immobilizing. Like it really kind of limits just who you are and what you can be. So if there's any takeaway from that, positive affirmations, positive thoughts, live in the moment, you know, try to be the best that you can be, put good energies out there, and you never know, you might get some good energies back.
And try.
Exactly. Put the
Instead
pen to the paper.
Try.
Good point. Good
At
point.
least try. And if you don't do too great the first time, try a couple more times. Then it's not necessarily that you can't do something. Maybe you're just not the greatest at it.
That's a good point.
And that's okay. It's okay to not be great at everything.
That's a good point. And I think that's actually a good thing to end on there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So appreciate you hanging out with us here at the Brain Buffet. Hopefully we're able to provide some food for thought for you. Take it, gobble it down, you know, throw it away. It's up to you.
Put it on a buffet.
Put it on a buffet. Appreciate you being here. If you haven't already, like, subscribe, hit that bell for notifications. Till next time.